Hi, everyone. It's Dennis Roberts from the Roberts Real Estate team here at Royal LePage Frank Real Estate, and another episode of Ask the Home Pros, where we put together a lot of our professional networks or extension of our team, professionals that make the home buying and selling process smooth and hassle-free. Talking about mortgage people, we're talking about home staging, photographers, et cetera, lawyers. But today is on a very interesting topic where I get a lot of questions from clients about home inspections. Are home inspections worth it? Are they important? And we're coming out of a market where it was so hot and competitive that a lot of people forego the home inspection, and in some cases to their detriment, because they didn't know what they were buying. There were going to be lots of surprises going forward. So I've asked a friend of mine and one of our preferred home inspectors, Darin DeYong, is joining us from a Buyer's Choice Home Inspections. Darin, thank you very much for joining us today. If you could tell us a bit about yourself and your company, and we'll get to the top 5 questions that people ask us about home inspections.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it, Dennis. So my name is Darin from Buyer's Choice Home Inspections. I'm a franchise owner out in the Durham region. Also serve for the GTA East, and all sort of surrounding areas. Our company was started in 2007 in Nova Scotia. We've grown to about over 200 inspectors from coast to coast. And we provide all kinds of home inspections to either protect the seller or the buyer, which in most cases, but a lot of times on the seller, with the pre-listing inspections. And we do a variety of, like you mentioned about the times where you couldn't get any inspections in. We had some walkthroughs, and we kind of adapted to the different scenarios to help the buyers where we can, to get as much protection as possible. So, and hopefully, moving forward now, we're kind of market's changing a bit now, so in favor of the buyer, which is nice, and they can get some more protection.
Yeah, it's a scary. You're buying a big ticket item. You really want to have someone go through it and take the time. A lot of our times when I'm showing clients properties for the first time, we have about a half-hour window to take a look at the property, and that's not nearly enough time to take a good look at. You would certainly, if you were buying a car, for example, a used car, you would have a mechanic go and take a look at it to make sure that, okay, there's going to be no surprises. Now, a mechanic, just like yourself as a home inspector, there's no way that you could see everything. And you can't see the future. Unfortunately, you don't have a crystal ball either. And knowing whether or not certain items in the house or what's going to last, how long it's going to last for, and so on and so forth. But I do get a lot of questions from my clients, and I'm sure a lot of other realtors as well, where some people really value what you bring to the table, and they should. Some people just aren't so sure. Some people haven't bought and sold in a while. I know home inspectors and home inspections have been around for a little while now, but they haven't been around forever. So if you haven't done real estate in, say, over 20 years or thereabouts, you may not be familiar with the process and all the valuable things that you bring to the table and the information that's needed. But so with your help, we put together the top 5 questions that people ask you as a home inspector, and we'll go through them now, and I'll pass off the screen to you in a minute. The first question I have is, did the house pass or fail the inspection?
Yeah, so thanks. So, this is a question I get asked quite often. Did my house pass or fail? And it's one of those things where, it doesn't pass or fail. Or maybe I should say, maybe it passes or fails on the client's expectations and what they're comfortable with, what they're expecting. To them, it may pass or it may fail. Because, at the end of the day, every house has stuff. New house, old house, 20 years old, 5 years old. I've seen a variety of houses, and there's always stuff. There's improvements. Maybe there's maybe there isn't any major red flags per se, but there's improvements and there's some minor repairs and things to make better. Yeah, so it all depends, I think, on the buyer or the client. I mean, couple outlets, a light might, somebody say, forget it. I'm not buying this house. And not understanding that, what, the perfect house is not out there. You'll never find the perfect house. So it's a matter of, what are you comfortable with? What can you, what do you find? And a fuse panel. No one likes to see a fuse panel, and as soon as they see that, they're out. Or somebody else, the client could be an electrician. No problem for him. He knows a buddy. He can get it done easy. So yeah. So there is no such thing. I always say there is no such thing as a pass or fail. It's just what you're comfortable with here, and I'm here to provide the most knowledge, the best knowledge I can for the client, so they're comfortable and they can make the best educated decision they can at that time. That's basically what it comes down to.
You're exactly right. No house is perfect, and not even brand new homes. Brand new homes are under warranty, but that doesn't mean they're perfect. And I know a lot of people that buy new homes as well should be taking advantage of your services, whether it's on the pre-delivery, but most likely within the first, say, 30 days on the carry-on warranty. So you can kind of go together and make a list of items that you've seen as a home inspection professional that they can use with the builder to try and get those items taken care of. I've seen too many brand new homes where things haven't been done, like missing insulation in the attic is one of the bigger ones. So you make sure you're covering all bases.
Yeah, and I've seen that once, myself, because at the end of the day, there's it's not maybe to the fault of their own, but everyone's on a schedule. They got to build all these houses, and they got trades coming in and out, and they're all over each other. And everyone's got so much going on that some things get overlooked, maybe by accident, but they can and they will. So that's why I come in. And you're right with the carry-on warranty. You got your 30-day, you got your 1 year, your 2 year, even your 7 year. But your 30 days and your 1 year is your most important one, because that's where they'll pretty much fix anything within that time period. And that's kind of what you want to get the home inspection to get. Anything that's that's done wrong that needs to get fixed gets fixed before it becomes their problem.
Exactly. Yeah. So the clock is ticking. So you want to make sure that you get that inspection done properly.
Yeah, exactly.
Another big question I get all the time is, how much does inspections cost? How much do you charge, kind of thing? And I know that's not a black and white answer, because there's lots of different things. Could be location, could be the size of the property, could be the type of the property. Another thing I like to add on to that, if you don't mind, is how long do these take? I get a lot of questions about that. How long does a home inspection take? From the seller's perspective, how long are we supposed to be out of the house? How long are we supposed to be away? How long is the inspection going to take on a house? And I'll pass that question off to you. But the first one is, how much do they cost?
Yeah. So, your home inspection your average home inspection is anywhere from $450 to $500. And again, like you said, it depends. You got detached homes, you got semis, you got townhouse condos, you got condo apartments, you've got a variety. And then it comes to travel as well. You got to go far. There's a little bit of travel cost sometimes, but your average is $450 to $500. Comes with a nice little warranty package that we give for some protection to the buyer. Comes with a recall safety check for all the appliances as well. We do a little presence radon test as well, which is part of it. So radon's another whole thing we can talk about another time, but I have a little machine that kind of tests for it. Just kind of gives a sense if there is radon on the property. That's all included in the price. So it's a nice little package. It's a price that I think is worth it to have that comfort knowledge going in, that, you're in a safe home, or at least you have the knowledge, all about the house, no surprises. So basically, the prices could, condo apartments, you're down to maybe 350, townhouse, you're about 400, kind of in that range. So that's kind of what you're looking at.
Okay. It's a good package from the recall warranties, what's going on, but it's not tell me what's wrong. It's also to give more information as to, what do you make a suggestion about this, or how serious is that? And we'll get into a couple of questions in a minute here, talking about, how to judge how scary is something that they might see. They have to keep it in perspective. Again, back to what we said before, not every house is going to be perfect.
Yeah.
Another question that we get a lot is, especially on mechanical things like furnace, air conditioning, maybe on the shingles on the roof, is how old is it and how long will it last? How much time do I have before I have to shell out some more money?
Yeah. And that's a big question, because when you're buying a house, you need to also budget. I mean, a lot of these things like the roof and HVAC systems, they have a shelf life, right? They're going to get to a point where they're not working as efficient as they should be, viability and so on. So, you can get some annual maintenance and service on it, but at some point they don't last forever. Things are going to happen. So, I like to help a little bit with sort of, I have, with HVAC systems, your roof, windows, things like that. I will always advise kind of roughly what the lifespan is, and be prepared. So at least if you're buying the house and you've got a 20-year-old AC unit, they're about 10, 15 years roughly on a lifespan. Then you should know about that ahead of time, so you can at least a budget for it. Yeah, maybe get a couple more years out of it just to get you by, but at least knowing in the future, I got to put that on the budget to hope replace. Furnace, same thing. Roof, you're anywhere from 15 to 20 years on a roof. Again, all depends on weather, all depends on the type of shingle too. I mean, there's all different grades of shingles. There's different styles. So depending on the kind of shingles you buy as well. And nowadays they got the new architectural shingles. They usually have a little bit longer lifespan as well. But that's another big one. Windows, you're a good 25, 30 years on windows. But again, all depends on the kind of window you have. But they also have a shelf life, and they won't be as thermal protective as the new ones are. So let all drafts in, so you may be losing energy and so on. So so it's important that through the home inspection process that they have an idea. Okay, HVAC systems are going to have to place that a couple of years. All right, my roof's got about 5 years left, and so on. Helps them budget for the future. At least there's no surprises. They can prepare, which is a big part of this.
Yeah, it's just like I said, it's ideas for maintenance too. I mean, you got an idea of how long. Okay, you can't say for sure how much longer the furnace is going to last, but based on your experience and everything else, you can kind of give a rough ballpark to it. You mentioned windows too. A lot of people forget about caulking around the windows.
Yes.
The caulking cracks need replacing. It doesn't last forever either. And a lot of times it needs replacing long before the windows need to be doing.
For sure.
And how well has it been looked after? Like, has the furnace been clean? You can see some of that stuff based on your experience. You get a good idea whether or not looking at items of the house, overall, did the homeowners really look after it, or did it let it fall apart? Right.
That's a big one too. Maintenance for sure. Changing the filter at least every 3 months, especially if you have pets. I mean, all that comes for that return air. All that dust comes right to the filter. And if there is no filter, I've seen that before. But if the filter's really bad and not installed properly, because there's actually a certain way to put that filter in, the filter can get destroyed, right? All that air, if it's not put in properly, the filter inside will get destroyed, and then all that dirt's coming right through that furnace. And now that's you're reducing the lifespan basically on it when that happens. So maintenance is huge, just like anything. Car, right? Same thing. You want your car to last, you got to maintain it. Oil change, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. You've got to do the basics if you want to get your value out of it, your lifetime out of it. The next question we have is kind of a funny in my regard too, because a lot of times when I'm showing properties to clients and they're looking at the foundations and things like that, and they tend to see cracks, whether it's poured concrete block, stone foundation, doesn't really matter. Cracks are very common. But the difference is, what is a normal crack and what is more severe or something that we need to pay more attention to? So what do you say when someone says, how severe is that crack on the side of the house?
Okay, great question. Of course, one of the first things gets pointed out all the time. Sees a crack, oh my God, it's got to be falling apart. There's got to be a big problem, right?
Exactly.
And and that's honestly, that's not necessarily the case. Now, cracks are funny where sometimes it's a monitor thing. Like it's really hard even for me to judge on some cracks just being there for the 2.5 hours time I'm there, right? So, but I will say this. So in foundations are going to have vertical cracks. They're going to happen. It's part of the curing process of concrete. Anytime you pour a big pad of concrete, whether it's a sidewalk, a garage floor, cracks are going to happen. There's stress is going to happen on the concrete, and sometimes it happens within the first few years of the build. When things start to move a little bit, it starts to crack, and then usually sometimes that's it. It doesn't move anymore. So I always advise, and usually they're pretty. Usually they're less than a 1/4 inch thick. Usually they're pretty small cracks. A lot of times, more often either at the corners of the house. Sometimes they're in the middle. But at the end of the day, you still want to seal them up. You don't want getting moisture. Anytime you get moisture in there, it still starts to eventually start to deteriorate the foundations. You still want to kind of seal them up anyway to keep moisture out. So. And then there's, so those are vertical cracks. The more severe cracks usually are the horizontal cracks. So if you ever see a long horizontal crack, chances are that probably has to do with the ground pressure outside. So, and that actually more so with the water accumulation around the foundation. So if you don't have good drainage and you don't have your downspouts and the water's coming down, that water is pooling around the foundation. And when it gets through the winter and get through the freeze thaw, that now puts pressure, and that starts to expand and shrink. And as it does that, it puts pressure on the concrete, and that will start to bow in, which causes the horizontal crack. So those are the cracks that are usually more severe than the vertical cracks for the most part. Not like I said, not every crack. It's hard to really say, but on the average, that's usually that scenario. Then there's the siding, the brick veneer that's over the wood structure of the home. You see a lot of cracking in the mortar joints. Again, that's kind of usually a common thing to see. If you see a couple here and there, again, the foundation is curing and it's moving and it's settling. So guess what? Everything on top is hard. So that's got to move too. That's got to have some type of give. So chances are you're going to see some cracking through the mortar joints. Sometimes you will even see it going through the brick, because at the end of the day, the crack is going to take the path of least resistance. And if that mortar is really hard, it wants to give somewhere. So sometimes it will crack through the bricks as well. So that is kind of common to see. A few here and there. If you got quite a few of them, then you may have you may have a bigger issue. But at the end of the day, that's just the brick veneer, right? That's just the facing. That bricks can come off. You can fix the mortar joints. Some people caulk them up. The proper way to fix mortar in bricks is to actually do what's called tuck pointing. That's where you have to grind out the mortar joints and refill them if you want to do it properly. But again, that's just sort of the facing of the house. But those are common cracks that you see I probably see them in 15 of every 20 brick homes I see, right? Again, it's just a matter of a few here and there is okay. You just don't want to, if you see a lot of them, then there might be another issue going on. But for the most part, those are quite common to see. But you just want to, again, you want to fill them up. You don't want moisture getting in behind the brick, because once that happens, then the moisture starts to get absorbed through the brick. And then what happens is spalling. Spalling is where the face of the brick starts to fall off. So again, cracks, there are some cracks that aren't as important. Some are. You still want to seal them up regardless, because you still want to keep that moisture out regardless.
Yeah, we see a lot of step cracks, as you call them, from the brick. And like you said, it is, or in the most cases, it's the newer stuff is brick veneer. So it's not structural kind of thing from the brick standpoint, but it's more cosmetic. But also you mentioned we don't want the bricks to deteriorate, water getting in there. Eventually the freeze thaw, they'll start to crack and crumble and the bricks will fall apart. If you see a lot of them, it's something maybe that, again, someone like yourself to be able to discuss whether you think it's a problem or something that's happened way back when the house was built and doesn't look like it's gotten any worse.
Yeah.
But a word of advice to everybody out there that's thinking of doing their own tuck pointing again, please hire a professional. I can't tell you how bad the caulking job looks when someone does it themselves, when they try to fill it in with like white silicone or something like that. And it just highlights the step crack and you can see it from across the street now. And there's no point. Make sure you hire a professional, spend the money. It's worth it. Make it look nice. Don't ruin the curb appeal of your house by doing it yourself.
No, 100%. I always advise, always seek a professional for this. You want to get it done right. You want it to look good, right? It's your home. You live there. You want the outside. You want the exterior to look nice. You want to get professional in. It's done right and it looks nice. Blends in with the rest.
The kind of a side question. So I'm kind of putting you on the spot here, but you mentioned the cost. I mean, I get the same thing too, as the agent says, well, how much does it cost to say do the repointing? How much does it cost to replace the air conditioner? How much does it cost to do the roof? Now, you're not a specialized contractor in those things and you don't price it directly, but do you get into estimates at all, or is it seek professional advice before you move forward?
Well, I mean, certain things, HVAC systems, electrical panel, if you just want to change a 100 amp fuse to breaker, or if you want to upgrade from 100 amp breaker to 200 amp breaker, roof, windows, I give a ballpark, a wide range ballpark. It's really hard to depend who you, again, comes down to product and who you hire to do the job, right? That can really vary on the price. But I have certain things like that. I got some idea. When it comes to, I get sometimes I've done fuse inspections where everything I've asked, what's the cost? Everything I've gone through, what's the cost? What's the cost? What's the cost? It all depends. I mean, waterproofing, that's a big job. If you do waterproofing on the exterior, which is usually the way you want to do it, but it's a lot more expensive and it's very labor intensive. So that could be, $20,000 to $40,000. Do they have to do the whole side? Is it one side? So those are tougher ones to kind of put a price on. But HVAC systems, roof, windows, panel, I usually give a range. Those are usually the main ones anyway that people want to know how much that costs, because it does cost quite a bit to do that stuff, right? So
yeah, you're right. Exactly. It depends on what materials they want to use and how extensive they want to renovate. It determines the price. But the range that you have given to my clients has been pretty bang on. It gives them a peace of mind knowing, okay, is it 10 grand? Is it 20 grand? What's the expenditure that I'm going to have to shell out in the next 2 to 3 years, kind of thing.
Yeah, for sure.
You were mentioning cracks and whatnot in the foundation and possible moisture coming into the house. And that leads me to my last question today. And a lot of people, maybe because of COVID, extra cautious about their health care and especially respiratory that's going on right now. A lot of people are wondering about mold, and they're not sure what's mold and what's dirt, and they're not sure how extensive it is or how easy is it to clean it up or get rid of it. So the last question we have for today is, will you know if there's any mold in my house?
Yeah, so great. Of course, everyone wants to know that. Like you said, it's a health risk. So people want to know. They want to know. They don't want to be breathing in mold. No one wants to live with mold in their house, and they want to know where it is and can it be fixed and can it be mitigated and so on. Mold is, and again, I don't do mold testing. I leave to the professionals. I want to leave it to them. That's their job. That's what they do. And you can never confirm if it's mold unless it's tested. But I've been around. I've seen a lot where I can pretty much tell that it's probably a type of microbial type product of some sort, but you can never really confirm unless you get it tested. But there are signs when you see some spotting in that, because there's moisture stains, and then is it mold? Is it really just moisture? Yeah, some days it is tough to tell. But usually, if you see sort of like a spotting, that's usually your first indicator that it probably is leaning towards a mold type scenario. And a lot of that mold happens from moisture intrusion. And when moisture intrusion comes in and it's unattended, mold grows, and mold thrives in dark areas. So like that's why you find it behind drywall. When it comes in, it's not taken care of. Well, guess what? It grows and grows and grows and grows. When you haven't taken care of it, that's where it is. I've seen it in closets up in the corners. Maybe that's some moisture problems and they left it alone and now it's in a dark area. Well, guess what? It thrives and it feeds off the nutrients in drywall and wood and things like that, where it starts to grow and grow. Attic is another prime spot. Anytime you got warm, cold, moisture, mold, right? I mean, if you leave it, that's if you leave it too long, or if you got an issue in your attic. But I mean, of all spots to find mold-ish type, type scenario is in the attic, and that usually comes down to bad ventilation, or got some insulation issues where it doesn't have a whole lot of insulation. A lot of that warm air gets up into the attic and hits that sheathing, that cold sheathing, and it creates moisture. You leave that too long, that is eventually going to turn to mold. So an attic is a big one. And even I'll just touch on this because I see this a lot, and it'd be surprising how just the attic hatch itself, what that can create if that's not sealed properly. Having that insulation on top, which really you can glue a piece of styrofoam, piece thick, 10 inches piece of styrofoam that covers the whole perimeter of the attic hatch, and weather stripping. Tons of times I don't find weather stripping. When there's not weather stripping, that, believe it or not, that warm air is still going to seep its way up and it's going to hit. And in the wintertime, I can tell because there's frosting on the nails. That's my first indicator, is there frosting on the nails, and that means there's attic frost happening. And then eventually, you're going to get that white frost on the sheathing, and eventually it's just going to, once it starts to melt and freeze again, guess what? Now you got moisture problems, and if you don't fix it, eventually it'll probably get some mold going on in there. So
yeah, attics are the number one place that we're going to find mold because, like you said, it's dark, and the ventilation, especially if it's an older house and people have done their own things, or maybe they've covered up the soffit vents or whatnot, or there's not enough soffit vents, or there's not enough venting on the top of the roof. You've got to have that air circulation to keep that moisture out and prevent that mold from growing. Definitely. Another area though is cold rooms, cold cellars and basements, where they're either they've sealed in the ventilation holes, which they thought, well, what are these holes here for? Let me just stick some insulation in there. No, you want the air moving in there if you're going to use it as a true cold cellar, because you're going to get mold otherwise. You're going to have to get that condensation. Again, it's another dark spot, like you mentioned, and it's just a perfect spot for mold to grow and thrive.
Yeah, 100%. You're right. Hang on.
And once it starts, it's so easy to come back again too. So you want to make sure that it's looked after. Another place that a lot of clients of mine get confused with are along the windows. It could be mold, but most of the time it's dirt, because it's not hidden in the dark, it's exposed. Usually it's just lack of maintenance on the window, lack of cleaning on the window, but it could lead to possible water penetration or leakage, like you were talking about, that might get into the drywall behind it, right? Bubbling on the paint maybe, or the wallpaper that's below the window. Corners of the windows are always a big spot as well, right?
Yeah, it's probably more so like a mildew, almost like your bathroom, right? So your bathroom, around the bathroom there, right? Because it's just water. So I know you got water, it's eventually, so you just clean it. You got to keep it clean. Because the big problem even I have in my house here is you get a lot of moisture on the inside of the window from the heat. My house is almost 20 years old now, so they're not the best insulated windows in the world. So you get some moisture on the inside, right? Unfortunately, it's just one of those things that it happens. You got a humidifier here and here that kind of help add a little bit of moisture, right? So it's not so dry. But at the end of the day, you've got your heating vents right by your window, and you got your cold air. So if you don't have the most insulated windows in the world, then you're going to get some moisture on the inside. Clean that off. If you don't specifically you have wood windows, that's when if you have wood frame windows, like as opposed to vinyl, which is more so what you'll find nowadays, then again, it's wood, right? So moisture in wood, that's where mold and mildew likes to grow and hang on to. So just got to clean it.
Exactly. Yeah. Right now, when we're recording this, it's December, and it's cold outside, and it's constant condensation buildup along the bottom of the windows, and it's if the humidifier is set maybe too high or not high enough, or the flow there, like you said, the heat's usually blowing up from a diffuser right below the window, and it's just making that worse. So maintenance, cleaning up the water, and being aware of it.
That's it.
Darin, just wrapping up, thank you very, very much for doing this today.
Thank you.
I really do appreciate it. For those of you out there that are contemplating doing a home inspection or buying or selling your house, please contact Darin directly or myself. We're certainly happy to help and give you some information so you can make a good decision going forward. Our jobs are to make it as seamless and as stress-free as possible, and trying to limit any big surprises, right? That's the idea. Again, unfortunately, neither one of us have a crystal ball, but we can, based on our experience, give you the right advice so you have that knowledge going forward. And with the market the way it is, as buyers have a bit more leverage, we'll say, in negotiating and able to put these conditions back in there. And I do highly recommend them that you take advantage of this chance to do it. And you take about a couple hours or thereabouts to do the home inspection. It's not like a quick viewing. So you're going to take your time and really take a thorough look at it too, especially the attic, checking the electrical panel, plumbing, mechanical, and all that kind of fun stuff. Again, Darin, thank you very much. On the screen will be our contact information and our social media accounts. Feel free to reach out to either one of us. And thank you very much again, Darin.
Thanks, Dennis. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.